Major Giannis Antetokounmpo update today, as when he was just asked about the NBA Finals, he said, and I quote, "I'm rooting for good basketball. The finals are different. I hope to be back soon with whatever team that may be." And that was via Anthony D_Heat. Now, as the illustrious Heat vs. Haters replied, did bro source himself? The answer is yes, I did source myself because I realized today that my delusion has free will. But that's okay, because isn't that what most reporters do nowadays anyways? They're always just making stuff up for clicks and using misleading headlines. Like earlier today, everybody was freaking out on Twitter when the actual quote from Giannis Antetokounmpo was getting spread around, which said, "I'm rooting for good basketball. Their finals are different. I hope to be back soon with the Bucks," which is actually what he really said, which I understand. Upon first read, it really does sound like Giannis is all but confirming that he is not requesting a trade. But then I said, wait a minute, let me not get caught up in the headline. Maybe this quote was taken out of context. So I read the entire thing, and here's everything that he had to say. There are two great teams that got there. When speaking about the finals, he said, "Indiana, with my friend Pascal Siakam, is reaping the rewards, and OKC simply has the MVP. I'm rooting for good basketball." Then the quote goes on to say, "The finals are different. I hope to be back soon with the Bucks." Which, I'm very interested the way this article was written, because that section of the quote where he said soon with the Bucks, that section is still isolated. But I'll be honest, I really don't think it was taken out of context, because I can't truthfully think of anything else that could possibly mean. But then I was thinking, wait a minute, who is actually the source of this quote? Who is the real source? Because of course it's not me. And it turns out that it was somebody called Coast to Coast Brazil. And my initial thoughts were, what the hell, or who the hell is a Coast to Coast Brazil? Because just a month ago, Shams reported that Giannis Antetokounmpo was actually open to exploring opportunities outside of the Milwaukee Bucks. And now some publication called Coast to Coast Brazil is saying the exact opposite. Like they were the publication out of all the people who were able to get the inside scoop. Because if that's the case, they must be promoting it everywhere. So I looked into Coast to Coast Brazil, and let me be the first to tell you, something doesn't quite add up, as it looks a little bit fishy. So the first thing I did was go to their Twitter page, which was linked by almost all the aggregators which were initially reporting this story. And yeah, they do have a decent amount of followers. They have 183,000, but everything else looked off. The link in their bio led to some random betting website, so I couldn't find any actual record of the quote coming directly from them or directly from Giannis, because there was no linked podcast, there was no linked article, no linked website, no linked anything except this random betting website. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and take a look at their tweets. So when you start scrolling down through their latest post, you have to scroll through several posts before you see anything related to Giannis Antetokounmpo at all. And then all you see is this random thread of their interview with Giannis. In this thread, there's about 7 tweets with different quotes that they got from Giannis, and none of them was this quote about wanting to win a championship soon with the Bucks. There was nothing about this viral quote that was going around everywhere. So very clearly something doesn't add up. The other thing that people were referencing was this Eurohoops article by a writer named Giannis, where he mentioned that same exact quote from Giannis. But this Eurohoops source is completely different than the Coast to Coast Brazil source, which, let me remind you, in case you're not all that familiar with geography, Brazil is not even in Europe. So things continue to look fishy the more and more I looked into this quote. Now, I understand this whole video may come across as me coping and praying that the Giannis pipe dream is still alive, which it is a pipe dream. That's certainly what it is. And it's also very possible that I am coping. But let me be the first to tell you, I don't buy this quote by Giannis. And in fact, I think we're going to get some sort of conflicting report in the near future saying that Giannis is actually still open to leaving the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, there's going to be some people who counter the points that I made in this video and say, but wait a minute, Ant. Some random foreign reporters weren't the only ones with a major Giannis update today, because just earlier, ESPN's Brian Windhorst had this to say.
But right now, there is no Giannis Antetokounmpo trade market. There is no Giannis Antetokounmpo trade discussions. He has not asked for it. The Bucks are not looking to trade him.
Which to me, that's not even a report. That's Brian Windhorst literally saying that he knows nothing, or at least that he hasn't heard an update, because that's all that report was. But at least Windy didn't lie this time, because he has spent the last several months pretending like he had some inside information about Giannis going to every single other team except for the Bucks. My point is, I don't know anything about Giannis Antetokounmpo, but here's the catch, guys. Neither does anybody else. I wanted to make this video to show you the importance of actually reading full articles / quotes straight from the primary source, and more importantly, vetting sources, because a lot of times stuff just isn't gonna add up, and that's how all this misinformation gets spread nowadays. And most importantly, you gotta understand that 99.9% of things you read on the internet is because somebody is trying to get you to click on whatever it is. It could be their article, it could be their video. All they care about is getting your clicks, which means that a lot of times they're making up information. And also, let me tell you this, that's fine with me. I get it. I am a content creator, and getting clicks is probably the second most important thing after actually retaining your audience. But you can't retain an audience if you don't have an audience to begin with, because they didn't click on your material. So hopefully everybody understands that now. And to the Heat fans that were discouraged that the Giannis pipe dream is dead, I don't think it is quite yet. Although it still is a pipe dream. Don't get it twisted. The odds of the Heat landing Giannis are still less than 5%, but they're not zero. And at the very least, I do think the odds of Giannis at least going to the West are very, very possible still, which of course would open up the East more than it already is. So hopefully we can all stop collectively freaking out over every little rumor and report that gets dropped this offseason, because it's gonna be a long one. I mean, regardless of what else Brian Windhorst had to say earlier today, which was, oh, we're going to see a lot more transactions earlier in this offseason than in previous years. And I'm like, no, we're not. What's different about this year than previous years to make you think we're going to see all these stars get traded in the next 2 weeks? It's not going to happen. That's Brian Windhorst trying to drive people to his articles so they sign up for whatever ESPN plus premium promotion they have running now to scam more viewers into thinking they're getting inside information. Like, it's not going to happen. Things are going to take time this offseason, and especially as Heat fans, we can't drive ourselves crazy over all these reports, because hopefully we're in the mix for a lot of these guys, and I know we're waiting with bated breath to see what's going to end up happening, because hopefully we don't run it back. Point is, just, it's going to take some time. Eventually we will find out. That's not to say that I won't make videos on some of these silly reports we get over the next month or two, because it's still fun to talk about, but I just don't find any validity behind most of these reports. That being said, that's all I got to say for this video. Let me know y'all thoughts down below. Maybe give me a percentage chance you think the Heat have of actually getting Giannis, and then also give me a percent chance you think that he leaves the Bucks in general. I'm very curious to see where everybody's headspace is at on that. That being said, like the video and subscribe. I'm on the grind to hit 8,000 subs. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a headspace. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.